Oh Yeah is brought to you by FilmDrunk. If you're not familiar, FilmDrunk is a hot sauce of the month club. They bring small batch and craft hot sauces that you've probably never heard of to your doorstep every 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. It's your choice. If a monthly shipment is too spicy to handle out of the date, their website has a hot sauce shop where you can purchase as many bottles as you want. They've got sauces from the Deep South, Mexico, and even the Caribbean available to purchase right now with no commitment necessary. They even sell a spicy honey. Go to FilmDrunk.com and use the code BROBIBLE10 for $10 off your first order. That's FilmDrunk.com and use code BROBIBLE10 for $10 off your first order.
You don't come to Sundance for the snow, you come for the heat.
Hello, and welcome back to Oh Yeah, the Entourage podcast. I am your host, J.R. Hickey, coming to you from San Francisco, California. Hope your week is going well. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for rolling with these Wednesday releases, guys. Only 2 more weeks. We are going to be back onto our regularly scheduled Monday releases right after Memorial Day weekend. Huge episode this week, The Sundance Kids. It's a classic. It's one of those iconic Entourage episodes that everybody remembers. Wanted to have a big guest on, so I had senior film and culture writer for Uproxx.com and the founder of FilmDrunk.com, Vince Mancini, on. Vince used to live in the Bay Area. He was a comedian. We ran in the same circles. He has been to Sundance 10 times over the past 10 years, so I thought he'd be the perfect guest. Full disclosure, about 5 minutes before we started recording, Vince emailed me, and he said, "Hey, by the way, I kind of hate Entourage," which initially gave me pause. Because we've had people on this show who hate Entourage, and it makes for a not that enjoyable 30 to 40 minute episode. But I decided to move forward with it because Vince is a cultured, well-spoken dude, and I thought he could give a little bit of perspective. And to be honest, he doesn't hate Entourage. He hates 2 performances in the Entourage universe. And I'll leave it up to you guys to find out for yourself what those are. So it was a great conversation. He's really articulate about his reasoning. We still got to unpack all the great parts of this episode. As you guys know, I'm an Entourage super fan, so I made sure to hit all of our usual topics and talking points. If anyone follows me on social media, I was at Joshua Tree this past weekend. I did a short video for FilmDrunk.com, one of our newest sponsors and advertisers. If you haven't checked that out, go to the Oh Yeah Pod Instagram feed or Twitter account, or go to my personal accounts at JR Will Do It. I haven't mentioned this in a few weeks, but we are compiling all of our favorite songs from Entourage on a Spotify playlist. It's called the Oh Yeah Music Playlist. A link to follow that playlist is in your show bio. Thank you to everyone who's reached out. Thank you to everyone who listens, who's left a 5-star review. Please continue to leave us 5-star reviews. We got like 55-star reviews on there, and there are thousands of you listening every week, so I know there's a disparity. If you haven't yet, please just hop in that app, hit 5 stars, and move on with your day. It would mean so much to me. Enjoy the episode, enjoy your week, and we will see you next Wednesday. Our guest this week is the senior film and culture writer for Uproxx.com. He is the founder of FilmDrunk.com, and his work has appeared in GQ and TheRinger.com. And he is the host of The Frotcast, a comedy podcast about movies. Dialing in on a Tuesday night from sunny LA, Vince Mancini, welcome to the Entourage podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I should also mention that I also have a podcast called Pod Yourself a Gun, which is a Sopranos rewatch podcast, which should be up your alley if you're into this show.
Absolutely. So this is what you're doing with Sopranos, though? You're rewatching it like once a week. When does that episode drop?
Yep. We don't have a set schedule. We're trying to do them weekly, but you know how podcasting works. You can't always get your friends in one place. But yeah, we're like weekly or bi-weekly, and we're on, I think, episode 8 will be our next one.
So it sounds like this isn't the most original idea then. Rewatching a show from HBO's glory days.
I mean, yeah, look, it's an idea that has legs, we'll say.
Yeah, and a lot of legs to go. So
yeah. No, I did my first podcast before podcasts really had like topics, and it was just kind of a talk radio thing. And so now, you know, as you've noticed with this show, now everything has kind of got like a clearly defined concept.
Oh yeah, extremely curated. We're trying to find our curated audience here, and
Yeah.
hopefully we found it. But hopefully, if people are fans of the Entourage podcast, there's hopefully a lot of crossover between mine and yours. So go check out that podcast. Vince, this is such a big episode that we're talking about here. The Sundance kids, the boys go to Sundance. I wanted to have you on. You talked about film for a living, and it's literally the boys at like the most prestigious film festival. Before we dive into all that, though, I'd love to just get your experience, your opinion with the show Entourage.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, like this was a great episode that you chose because like the first time in the original run of Entourage, I didn't really know that much about Sundance, and now that's 15 years later almost, and I'm a film critic. I've been to Sundance like 10 times since this aired, and it's got a lot of insider film references that we all kind of understand more. So that was interesting. That was a fun rewatch. But as far as the show goes, I think I watched like the first season with high hopes, as I do with almost any HBO show. And I think I checked out somewhere around this. Like this might be kind of where I started to check out. And this episode was like a perfect example of why.
So just for some clarity for the listeners, Vince emailed me right before we started and he said, "Hey, so I'm kind of a hater. Is that okay?" And I said, "That's great, man. As long as you're willing to come on here and talk about it, let's do it, because
absolutely.
This is totally fair. This is considered the peak of the show. So I find it so interesting that you left at its peak."
Yeah. I mean, like the show, like the concept of the show is like, it's wish fulfillment, right? Like what if your cool, super cool buddy became a movie star and you got to come along for the ride? That concept really relies on the main character, who is the big movie star. And I just find Vinny Chase as a character to be like such a charisma vacuum. And like, I don't think it would be that cool to be his friend. And so it's like the show is trying to sell me this lifestyle like as a cool thing, and I'm watching it and I'm just thinking like this would be like kind of a nightmare to me, like to be around. I don't know, maybe it's from having been around film people who I don't really like that much as a general rule. I don't know. It's like this whole fake world, and it's presented as this like really cool thing, and everybody's very much like posturing, like everybody's strutting around. Like every single scene is like a cool bro walk in this show.
Yeah. We'll get to bro walks. We'll get to all of it. I can't wait to dive in with this opinion of the show. I mean, this is the midpoint of season 2. Again, as I mentioned, kind of the apex of the show. So did you never return to it? Did you never tune back in? So you missed 6.5 more seasons of Entourage?
Yeah, I think I checked out around this time. Like I remember liking the, and it really came through in this episode, the director of Queens Boulevard, Walsh. I really like his character. Like he's of the group, like he's the only one that strikes me as like having actual acting chops, and it's like, I mean, other than Jeremy Piven, and like Jeremy Piven is basically playing like Jeremy Piven, and I appreciate what he does, but like as far as the core group goes, it just feels like they feel like very creaky sitcom cutout characters, and then except for Vinny Chase, who's like a cutout that's not even there, really.
I'm picturing the listeners who are just writhing in their car seats right now. Not their like child car seats, but their seats in their cars right now. So this is great, man. I cannot wait to go back and forth on some of these topics.
Oh, I'm happy to soak up all of the listeners' hate, because I remember when the Entourage movie came out, and it was just like, I don't know, 500 comments of people yelling at me for not being cool enough to get this show, and being like bitter because I'm not as cool as the characters. Because people that like this show, I feel like they think the characters are their friends. And to me, the thing that always that I can never get past with this show is that it doesn't, like, the relationships between the characters doesn't feel like any of the male relationships. And I've been a part of like a lot of groups of dude friends, and like, I don't know, this show never really rang true to me in that way.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see what topics may or may not have resonated with you throughout this episode. I personally am a huge Entourage fan. I can see a lot of the good points you're making, and I understand where your point of view is coming from. So I am going to respectfully disagree, I'm sure, throughout this podcast, but let's just see how it goes.
All right, yeah, no, I'm happy to argue if we want this thing to be like a crossfire kind of thing.
That's just what everyone came to the Entourage podcast for, an argument.
Yeah.
There isn't enough arguing going on today on podcasts.
Yeah, you're probably not going to like arguments if you love this show, which tends not to have like a ton of stakes in general.
Well, that's for sure. Let's talk about that. So this episode is called The Sundance Kids. It aired on Sunday, July 17th, 2005. The night before this aired, golf legend Jack Nicklaus played his last professional game of golf at the 134th British Open at St. Andrews in Scotland at the age of 65.
Oh, man.
During a span of more than 25 years, he won a record 18 major championships, and on Saturday, as he lined up for a 15-foot putt on the 18th hole, that same green in the same tournament that he won in 1970 and 1978, he drilled a birdie to the astonishment of the entire crowd there.
What a way to call it a career! Began the week and ended the week with birdies.
Like going out on top, like in every sense of the word. Unfortunately, he didn't make the cut for the Sunday crew, where U.S. golfer Tiger Woods won his second Open championship. Just a look back, little time capsule for everybody.
Tiger's back now. You know, he was big then, and he just won again. Perfect timing.
Time is a flat circle.
That's
another
right.
HBO show reference for you. Quick synopsis of this episode. Vinny and the boys arrive at Sundance, eager to see the final cut of Queens Boulevard, and to convince James Cameron to cast Vince as his Aquaman. A chance encounter between Eric and a studio bigwig leads to an offer for Vince that is a safe alternative to Aquaman. But Vince instead decides to take his chances and go for the superhero franchise. Although James Cameron only sees about 10 minutes of Queens Boulevard, he decides to slot Vince in as his leading man. Also at the festival, Turtle and Drama both romance the same woman, leading to a very awkward moment. Vince, if there is one, what was your favorite moment from this episode?
Look, I said I was a hater, but there's not, like, I don't completely hate this. There's things that I liked in this episode. There was two moments that I thought were really good. Well, actually three. So, they obviously have the Harvey Weinstein character.
Yep.
And they did a great job with him.
Yeah, it's Harvey Weinstein.
They did a great job with him, and they sort of, they depicted him as like a crazy tyrant before the world knew that he was, a psychopath. Yep. So that was pretty great. And the other two things that I liked were in the Q&A when Drama and Turtle go to the Alejandro Tiva movie. Like, this movie is this episode is pretty accurate to the Sundance experience to some extent. And specifically in that moment, like in every film Q&A, like there's always someone who asks a question that's not really a question. Like, I could probably write an entire book about like how not to ask questions at a post-film Q&A, because they're always terrible, because people in general are kind of terrible, and people always, like, they get up and they just want to hear themselves talk, and they say things that aren't really a question. And then the other cliche is like, oh, this one's a two-parter, and everybody has to sit there while the person just bloviates into the microphone. And the idea that Johnny Drama would be that guy is pretty perfect.
Great film. Congratulations. Very powerful stuff, Alejandro. I notice you use a lot of authentic people in films.
Authentic people are so much better than cartoons or robots.
It's a good one, Drama.
Let me, dickhead.
Okay, next.
Wait. I'm not finished.
It's only one question per person, sir.
That wasn't a question. That was a statement.
Sounded like a question to me.
No. This is a question. In two parts. Are you interested in seeing any films while you're here, Alejandro? And would you ever consider an American with some Chilean blood in him for the part of Raul in The Bullfighter?
I would consider anyone who would bring truth to the role.
Good, because I'm the sixth lead in Queens Boulevard, and I would be delighted if you would be my guest.
Yeah, no, getting clowned by the director is pretty solid.
Yep.
And then the other moment that I really liked is Walsh, which in general, like, I think I liked the show when he was a character because I thought he was the strongest character. Where they're asking him if anybody's seen his movie yet, and he's like, yeah.
Me, my editor, and my mother.
Yeah, what'd your mother think?
She thought it was garbage, but she's a fucking moron.
Yeah, you get the impression that like he's like a jaded actor who's been shit on by his parents his whole life, and that's just been his like driving force.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that was a legit LOL moment for me, and I think one of the few moments of this entire show that I remember, because a lot of it's kind of a blur, but I definitely vividly remember when Walsh is first meeting those guys, and he's like, yeah, we're from New York, we're from the streets, we understand. And they're like, oh yeah, we're from Queens, where'd you grow up? And he's like, Scarsdale. And I didn't even really I didn't even really fully understand what that meant at the time, but like having lived in New York since then, like the joke's funnier now, and I remember it. So
I think the line, and if I'm reaching back here, but it's like Scarsdale, but my dad owned a something in Kew Gardens. Like he owned like a rest stop or something, or and I'm already did a bunch of people shitting on me for not getting that line correct because I'm supposed to know every single line from every single episode of the show.
Yeah,
I'm doing my best here, guys.
Walsh is a well-written, well-acted character.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of favorite moments in this episode for me, and I wanted to whittle it down, and we'll get to more throughout today's episode, but I really liked James Cameron in line for popcorn.
One more question, Mr. Cameron. Was the sinking of the ship an attempt to foreshadow the forthcoming sinking of the tech market in 2000?
No. Actually, I just wanted to make young girls cry. Can I get some of the Sour Patch Kids, please?
You little shitbag! You wanted a job for Vince and now you fuck me! Do you know who I am? You're gonna beg to get back into the pizza business!
Just trying to do what's...
Fuck you! You and that fucking kid! The two of you are about to go down a river of shit! You hear me? That's it! You're finished! I will never offer that kid a fucking job again! Barry Gould's gonna catch a snack, too!
Fucking Harvey.
I liked it. It just kind of humanized the guy. It also was one of these moments where you're like, whoa, Entourage got James fucking Cameron to like play a version of himself, which I thought was entertaining.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's funny. I can't believe that James Cameron did this show. And they're like, wow, James Cameron is a really bad actor.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, I wasn't looking for him to. I wasn't expecting him to any, guest Emmys or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, it was a good role. They wrote him a good part.
And then I guess you're gonna roll your eyes at this, but I liked the moment they find out that Vince got Aquaman when they're on the mountain, because it sets up. I mean, it's been 7 straight episodes of this, Vince, of them being like, should he do Aquaman? Should he not? Do we have the money? Do we not have the money? Is the offer there? The offer's been pulled. So it's kind of a relieving moment, and I liked that, like, E's immediately like, we need to get you off this mountain. We don't want you breaking your leg on your first day. And Vince is just like, nah, fuck that. Let's go. And it's a little bro-y, but I liked it. It got the testosterone going for me.
Vinny, say hello to James Cameron.
Call me Jim, Vince.
Okay, Jim. What's happening?
I can only stay for a bit of the film, but I've got to tell you, it was all I needed to see. How'd you like to come play Aquaman for me?
Sure. I can do that for you.
Fantastic. Let's get together next week and talk about it.
Okay, great.
Okay, Vince, I'll see you then. Looking forward to it.
Talk to you later. Bye. Cameron just offered me Aquaman.
Yeah, baby.
Good job. Gotta figure out a way to get you off this mountain. We'll need you breaking your neck before we even start this movie.
Are you kidding? We just got Aquaman. I'm raising the stakes. 10 G's to the first guy who gets down there.
10 G's?
I'll give you a head start, Turtle.
Oh! Since they wanna know. Since they wanna know. Since they wanna know.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a show for people who like watching the boys succeed. Like every episode, it's like, oh, maybe they'll only do a commercial, and then it's like, no, psych, he's gonna get the movie that he wants.
Yep, that's right. Maybe he'll only do a commercial for $500,000 for one day's work.
Yeah, I mean, this episode is like it's like, oh, is he gonna go off and live in Australia and do a surf movie with Harvey Weinstein? Or is he going to get to do Aquaman? And it all comes down to whether James Cameron enjoys this passion project, this 4-hour passion project. And turns out he loves it and everything works out.
Everything works out in the end.
Yeah.
Vince, we talked every week about bros being bros moments, and bros being bros isn't necessarily the definition that you'd think. It's not them working out and going to monster truck rallies and watching internet porn together. Essentially what I've always thought of it as is like just the moment that you watch that seems the most authentic to a group of friends. Now, you just spent 5 minutes shitting on the inauthenticity of that, but I'd love to know if anything like that jumped out at you. Did you just like the interplay between the guys in any of the scenes in this week's episode?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, because like the whole thing that sticks out at me at this show is like they're always so guarded with each other. It feels like someone who's not cool trying to write the cool group of friends that he desperately wishes he was part of. And like it sticks out so much when Turtle and Drama are both going after the same chick and they're just like shitting on each other the whole time, and then they get super awkward. Like they had a threesome, but they can't even allow the vulnerability to like make jokes about it.
Come on, Drama, don't be a dick, bro.
Don't touch me, Turtle. I can't hear you. I can't see you. I don't even want to know you.
You're yelling, all right? What's your problem, Drama? Me and Drama had a little incident. What kind of incident?
Don't fucking say it, man.
No, say it.
We accidentally crossed swords. Ew.
Really? Are there any women there at least?
Yeah, dick, it was a threesome, okay? It's no biggie. Crossing is an occupational hazard.
That's what bugs me. It's like, because if that happened to me or my friends, like we would be making jokes about that for like the next 5 years. But these guys are like, oh, don't touch me, bro. Like, stop grinding on me, dude. Like, I'm not gay. Fuck you, dude. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's so much. There's such walls between them.
And I understand that part wasn't the most realistic, but in terms of the comedy surrounding that plot, it's funny. The whole thing where like she says to them like best friends shouldn't have to like fight over a woman. They should care more about their friendship.
She's right. This is crazy. What are we fighting for?
This girl's gonna be gone by tomorrow.
By tomorrow night, she'll be a memory.
And we gotta spend every waking minute together.
So what do you want to do?
I want the memory.
So do I.
Fuck you.
Fuck me, fuck you.
I said it first.
I liked the escalation of that and the writing of that. But no, you're absolutely right. It's not super realistic between like two best friends. I know that if like me and my best friend were going for a girl in this hypothetical situation when I'm not married, I'd just be like, dude, whatever, you try, and if it doesn't work, then I'll try, or whatever. It just wouldn't matter that much to me.
If you're part of an entourage, you're really gonna fight over the one girl who drives you around? I mean,
yeah.
Surely, like Vinny Chase has got groupies to go around, as we saw, like in the hot tub, where one of them is just like, "Well, I'm going to take my top off now." Like the whole show kind of exists in, Love Actually, where there's that one vignette where like the British guy comes to America and it's basically like a Girls Gone Wild porno, and we keep waiting for him to wake up because you're like, is there going to be some sort of comment on it? It's like, no, he was just living his dream with a bunch of naked chicks, and that's like the reality that the entire show of Entourage like exists in.
You can be an Entourage hater and I'll be a Love Actually hater, because I fucking hate that movie.
Oh no, well, we're on the same page with that.
I also like the scene when they did in the snowball fight in the streets of Park City. They're walking down the street talking about what it would be like to marry a Mormon, and Ari comes out of nowhere and just blasts him with the snowball.
You can't choose who you fall for, bro. Believe me, on the way here, I was dreaming of hooking up with a nice Mormon girl.
Why don't you go after a Mormon, Drama? I mean, they're all over the place here. Besides, everyone knows they know how to treat their men right. They're like Catholic girls times 100.
You think the night before a Mormon wedding, a guy says, how am I going to sleep with the same 8 women for the rest of my life?
Hey, I've been married. Loving one girl right is tough enough. Loving 8 would be impossible.
Vince could do it.
I don't know. What if I get divorced? Paying alimony would be a killer.
Nah, Vince, because they don't get half. I mean, they only get an 1/8.
They get a 1/9, you moron, or else Vince will get left with nothing.
Good looking at E. Always saving me money.
What? You don't let your guard down?
Yeah. So that seems much closer to the way that friend group would work, like in my experience. Like it'd be more like sack tapping and things and things of that nature. And that scene definitely gets closer.
What was your least favorite moment from the episode, or moments?
Yeah, I think it's just the way that Turtle and Drama react after they cross swords. Like you can kind of see, like I saw that plot point, like getting in a cab 6 blocks away, and then when it shows up, you're like, all right, we get it. They like touched wieners, and they're gonna be weird about it. But like for a group of guys that supposedly hang out every day, they're really not that comfortable with each other.
But Vince, if you and your best friend touched penises, you wouldn't at least be like, I need a day to let this cool off. I need a day to let this process. I know that I would.
No, I think that would bring us closer together.
Fair enough, man. Hey.
We were playing the game to see who could creep out the other one more, like trying to make more eye contact and whatnot.
I haven't been lucky enough to have a threesome with one of my buddies, but if I did, I've always joked around with my friends like, I wouldn't be able to look any of them in the eye because we would just make each other laugh so fucking hard at how ridiculous the situation was.
Yeah, no, I have 2 friends that were in that situation, and one of them has like among our friends, he was the one who had like the infamously huge penis, and then the other guy actually has like Peyronie's disease, who's got like a weird crooked dick, and so from then on, it was just them joking about each other's dicks. It wasn't like they were super weird with each other. It was just like that was more joke fodder, really.
I'm not as lucky as your friends, I guess.
Yes, I choose them well, I guess.
I'd say my only, and this episode has so many great moments that it was hard to choose one that I didn't like, but I liked, and we'll talk about celebrity cameos next, but I liked the Peter Dinklage cameo. I didn't like Ari just being a douchebag to him for no reason.
Yeah.
It just felt really like childish and like he was being a bully or something.
We all loved you in the station agent, Peter.
Fucking hope so. That's why I signed on with you people.
Well, if you would have signed on earlier, we could have slipped you into Bad Santa.
Actually, I passed on that, though. Thank you.
You're one of the biggest actors in this town, Peter.
What is that, a play on words or something, dickhead? I tolerate agents. I don't like them.
Don't listen to a word this bum said.
Fuck off, Herbie.
Yeah, that was a really good cameo, and again, it's like that's another thing that's like aged well because Peter Dinklage is only like just 10 times as much of a star. So, like him being the celebrity cameo was pretty good touch.
And let's talk about celebrity cameos a little bit. Peter Dinklage is arguably more recognizable than Ari Gold at this point in his career. Not at this point in 2005, but at this point now in 2019.
Oh yeah, I think Peter Dinklage is a bigger star than anyone in this show, like by a lot.
Because people don't think about it. In Game of Thrones, this is airing a few days after the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones. We're not there yet, but he is the face of that show. He's won 4 Emmys for it, and been nominated 5 or 6 times. I mean, when you think of Game of Thrones, you think of him, and when you think of Entourage, you think of Ari Gold, and in this throwdown, Dinklage kind of wins.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was a nice cameo.
It was a nice cameo, and it's pretty cool of Peter Dinklage to do that, where they're like, all right, your character is kind of a misanthropic guy who doesn't want to play the game. And at that point in his career, when people probably didn't know him as much, I mean, he'd done The Station Agent and was pretty critically acclaimed for that, but, it wasn't like he was a household name at that point.
So let's talk about the other major celebrity cameo, which we talked about a little bit on the top, which is James Cameron. Doug Ellen, the creator and writer of the show, he wrote in James Cameron as the director of his fake Aquaman simply because the show's post-production supervisor, Janice, had previously worked on projects with Cameron. And Janice was like, well, what are you doing? And Ellen was like, well, now we've got to go get him. So originally, Ellen actually planned for Aquaman to be a complete bomb at the box office, but it was James Cameron who contacted him at the end of season 2 to tell him otherwise, which is really interesting to hear, like, Cameron taking his cameo role on Entourage so seriously.
Yeah, and again, like, that's pretty good writing. I mean, they wrote in a fictional movie that became a real movie, and then they wrote James Cameron as a character like way before he got parodied on South Park, and like he's this very parodyable dude now who, like, builds submarines and goes and explores like the Mariana Trench, and then is obsessed with making this weird Avatar movie that he I don't even know how many. Like, when did Avatar come out? Like 2008 or 9, yep. And then we still like it's still going to be 2 more years before a sequel, and there's supposedly like 4 more. He's like this insane person.
He's like a mad scientist.
He is, yeah. He's like Richard Branson. If Richard Branson was a filmmaker, or like Elon Musk, one of these like ridiculous, like over the top dudes. And Entourage really got in on that on the ground floor.
Yeah, it was such an interesting choice by Cameron, and I'm endlessly fascinated by it. He shows up like 3 more times this season in scenes with Vince and scenes with Mandy Moore, who starts showing up. Like, I was really kind of like amused by the whole thing, and I'm amused that he had a lot of input on his character's kind of direction.
Yeah, no, they did a great job with him.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break to talk to you about FuedoBots. FuedoBots is a hot sauce of the month club. FuedoBots has tested thousands of small batch and craft hot sauces to bring you the tastiest sauces on planet Earth. From hundreds of hot sauces, they find the best of the best and ship them right to your front door. Recently, I tried their spicy honey and their ting sauce, a hot sauce infused with pineapples and a Carolina Reaper pepper. Both delicious, both a welcome addition to my breakfast in the morning. Try it for yourself at FuedoBots.com and use the code BROBIBLE10 for $10 off your first order. That's FuedoBots.com with the code BROBIBLE10 for $10 off your first order. Entourage is endlessly quotable. What were some of your favorite lines or quotes from this episode, Vince?
I mean, I already mentioned it, but definitely drama. Talking about this is actually going to be a 2-parter. It's a great joke about film Q&As, and again, just Walsh saying that his mom's a fucking moron.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all that was great.
I liked when they first encounter Cassie, their driver, and they ask where she's going to be doing her Peace Corps work, and she says the Sudan.
Where are you going to be stationed?
The Sudan.
Those are some lucky Sudanese.
That's called Sudanese, jackass.
Actually, it's Sudanese, but with your accents, I'll let it slide.
Which I talked about last week with Jeff Eisenband about the way they mispronounce things and act like they know what they're talking about is very, like, realistic to me. Kind of just meat-headed behavior.
Yeah, we actually have a segment on Pod Yourself a Gun called Malapropism Corner, because the gang in The Sopranos are very similar. Yep. They're always, like, if there's a quote, they're going to botch it, and they seem to do the same in this.
Who wins that most of the time? Is it Paulie Walnuts or is it Silvio?
Oh, Paulie Walnuts definitely has a lot. They really all do. I mean, Paulie Walnuts is, like, probably the funniest.
There he is. You hungry, T? You want to send the kid for Baja Fresh?
But there's plenty. There's like Christopher is like the movie guy, and he can never get the movie quote right. Yep. And he'll just describe a movie, and it'll always be bad. Like in the last one we did, he's like talking about Scarface, and he's like, you know how when Scarface came out with bazookas under each arm,
and you're like
what movie were you watching, dude? I don't remember any bazookas.
Yeah, he just described one of the most famous scenes in movie history, and he did it poorly, of course. Yes. Christopher Moltisanti. Okay, I would say the one last line that I liked from this episode was when Ari meets the 2 publicist girls, and he girls, hi.
Hi, girls. Nice to see you. Find real work. Vinny, I need you. Come here.
Which, I don't mean to shit on publicists, but like it does feel a little bit sometimes like fluff work.
Yeah. Oh, well, there was another good line in there because like those 2, one of them says one of them's a rep for tequila and one of them's a rep, and one of them's a rep for like cars or something, and then
Maserati. Yep.
Yeah, Maserati, and they're like, well, don't drink and drive. That was a good line.
We haven't had an episode recently with good music until this episode. There are a lot of songs that stood out to me this week. The biggest one is "Wanna Know" by Obi Trice, which is plays as the episode starts, as they walk down the runway at Salt Lake City Airport, and then it plays at the end of the episode as well. But did any other songs jump out?
There was a Hendrix one, like at the beginning, like early on. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head.
It was Crosstown Traffic.
Right, Crosstown Traffic. Yeah, that was a solid choice. Maybe, I don't know if Hendrix is too on the nose, but that was a musical choice that made me smile.
Yeah, totally. There was also a Far Side song, Passing Me By. It's playing during the Sundance party. I appreciated the kind of like underground hip hop
Yeah, they could have done. I mean, they did all right with the Sundance party scene. I thought they could have done a little more with just like the pure weirdness of Sundance parties. Like it's always like a DJ in a weird space, and like there's promos for some product that is strange and doesn't really fit the event, and then you're just getting like weird free promo drinks. They kind of touched on it when Drama's like, "Is this a cash bar?" And they kind of just laugh at him because like, "No, dude, it's Sundance. Nothing's a cash bar."
So yeah, would you say this was an accurate depiction of Sundance? I mean, obviously this was Sundance 15 fucking years ago, so it's much smaller. But did you get the impression that this was a version of it?
No, absolutely. And I think it's weird because like, I know I shit on it for not being like that accurate in terms of dude relationships, but in terms of a send up of the movie industry, it's pretty damn accurate, and especially it's accurate of Sundance, where he's going to see the acclaimed Spanish director, who I assume is like supposed to be Iñárritu or one of those other, or Almodovar or something. That was pretty good, you got the art house darling guy who kind of talks in pretentious riddles, where he's like, oh, I'll pick any actor that brings truth to the role or whatever. And it all rang very true as far as Sundance goes.
Sundance aged well in the show, but what didn't age well are the outfits that the cast and crew wear. So which outfit would you say stood out to you as being the worst in this episode?
Oh, this one didn't visually offend me as much as like a lot of things from 2005 probably would. I mean, I think Turtle's outfit stands out just because he's kind of like proto hype beast, and so his outfits always kind of stand out a little bit. Just like the weird red jacket. I don't know, but for some reason the red jacket's the only thing that stands out.
Yeah, honestly, especially their like snowboarding gear, it all kind of fit, because you still to this day wear like really baggy, poofy things when you go on a fucking cold mountain. So that didn't really get under my skin. I didn't really love Drama's like green cowboy hat and his fur-lined jacket that he apparently flew there in, and then like tipped his tat to Tassie, the driver, as she drops them off like he's a cowboy, and that made me laugh in terms of how ridiculous it was.
I think again, I think that's pretty accurate, especially now, because I think like the Western wear has become a thing like in Hollywood, especially like at this year's Sundance. Like that was especially pronounced, like people from LA really like playing up the wearing cowboy garb and looking like they just stepped out of True Grit. And I mean, the whole point is that Drama is like an idiot, and I think they captured that well, where he's like this dork from New York who tries to be like a Hollywood guy, and so of course he comes to Sundance dressed in a ridiculous cowboy hat, and like his like weird magazine idea of what a Hollywood dude would do.
That's an accurate depiction, like the dork from New York who dresses like he thinks a movie star should. That's perfect.
See, the thing is, like this show, like I love the concept of this show, that they're these guys from Queens, and E used to be a manager at Sbarro, and like they're coming out to LA to like act out their idea of what being a like industry player looks like, and that is kind of what LA is. Like everybody. LA, if there was like a Statue of Liberty outside of LA, it'd be like, give us all, give us your most pretentious assholes yearning to look like complete fucking idiots, and like just your most obnoxious people from all parts of the country, like come here.
You're
and
vain,
then
you're insecure. Yeah,
and so like every place kind of becomes what people think it is, because it attracts like whatever idea you have about the place. Like the people that go there are the people that are attracted to that idea, and that's kind of LA just becomes whatever people from elsewhere think LA is.
And that's why you live in LA, right, Vince?
Yeah. No, I mean, I live in it because I have to. I think that's the beauty of being a journalist is that you're in a job that pays nothing, that where one of the job requirements is to live in one of the 3 or 4 most expensive cities in the country. So it's super awesome.
I'm right there with you. I'm a writer full time, and I live in a not a writer friendly city. So
Yeah, I lived where you live for 8 years, so I know.
A lot of references in the show that don't stand the test of time. What was the most outdated reference that caught your attention?
Oh God, I wish I'd have wrote these down. I don't. What were some of the references that you noticed?
They show up to the house and Turtle's geeking out over the multiple sidekicks that they're given.
But you can attack this gift basket if you stop complaining.
Multiple sidekicks. eBay, baby.
Those T-Mobile sidekick phones. He bribes he bribes the like ticket taker at the movie theater with a sidekick.
Ticket? Sidekick?
That's right. Yeah.
Drama has the line when he's trying to impress Cassie. He's like,
Sonny Bono presented me with the bronze ribbon himself. My mom's got it hanging up in the foyer.
Wow, Sonny Bono. Did you ever meet Cher?
No, but I did play racquetball with Ron Camilletti for years.
But like otherwise, this episode weirdly holds up well because Peter Dinklage, James Cameron, Aquaman, Harvey Weinstein, like these are all references that would not be out of place in a 2019 show.
So I wanted to actually draw your attention to one reference that most viewers of the show probably didn't catch, but they show for a half second the Queens Boulevard poster. And if you stop and you do a little zoom, you see the cast of Queens Boulevard. Did you catch this at all, Vince?
No, I didn't catch the cast.
So let me read down this list. There's 5 people. The main person at the end will blow your dick off. The first, underneath Vinny Chase and Ethan Suplee, who's in that one scene that we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago.
Member of the Pussy Posse, along with Kevin Connolly. Yeah,
Kevin Connolly. That's right. We have Katie Holmes, Zoe Deschanel, Kelly Kruger, and Robert Duvall.
Strong.
Robert Duvall was in Queens Boulevard. It's like never mentioned. It's like obviously at this point in his career is like later on in his career, but like they never thought to mention like, oh yeah, Vince, you're in that Robert Duvall movie, Queens Boulevard. Like
right, like Vinny Chase is the bigger star in that apparently.
And it's the second movie of his career. It's like they did like they grabbed a bunch of names out of a hat back then, and we're like, who would be Zoe Deschanel in 2005 was a nobody.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was like more. I think she was like the indie. She was like the indie actress who would be in a Sundance movie at that stage of her career.
True, I found it fascinating. I'm trying to picture that cast and mind blown.
There was that moment where they're announcing Queens Boulevard, and it's like,
oh, and if anybody got to use the can, the movie's running almost 4 hours, so do it now. Thank you.
The part where nobody left was a little bit unrealistic because if I'm at a Sundance movie and the person comes out and tells me it's like 4 hours long, I'm like, all right, bye.
Yep, you're leaving. Fuck that.
Yeah,
I can barely sit through Avengers.
I mean, I guess that's more of a film critic thing, but like you're there and you're trying to see as many movies as you can and get all this work done and you're barely sleeping and like the bane of your existence is these super long movies. And you know, anything over 2 hours, like you can just hear every film critic in there being like, oh, fuck.
I love that it's 4, not 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
Just enough to make it almost a quarter of your fucking day.
I mean, he does go on to make like Medellin in the show, right? And then I think was it Soderbergh made like 4 hours worth of Che movie? I think a Che Guevara movie. So again, like they're pretty accurate with their like industry stuff.
That's great, and I'm glad to hear it from an industry insider like yourself.
Oh yeah,
we've talked a lot about how this episode really does kind of stand the test of time. The plot, the characters. Would anything be different if this episode were to air in 2019?
I mean, hopefully they wouldn't cast Kevin Connolly and Adrienne Grenier in it. That would be my. I mean, if I was casting it, I'd be like, yeah, these two completely charisma-free dudes would not be in this.
All right, I'm not going to take any shots at the cast because I'd love to have the cast on the show.
Yeah, I figured that would be a conflict of interest for you. So I had to be the one to say it.
All good. In terms of the plot of this episode, I think in the entire idea of Cameron flying to Sundance to see these movies and these actors it was absurd then and it's absurd now. Like I get that like last episode Billy Walsh refuses to send a screener to James Cameron, but in 2019, James Cameron would have even more weight to throw around, and the screener would just get sent to him in a Dropbox file.
Right. Yeah. No. If Billy Wallace refused to send James Cameron a screener, he'd be like, "All right, I'm definitely not casting anyone from this movie."
100%. And then I think Drama and Turtle wouldn't be fighting over Tassie. They'd just be like on Bumble and Tinder the whole time they were in Salt Lake, and probably end up landing a Mormon girl as they were discussing.
Oh, that's true. Maybe that is part of my criticism is I'm looking at it like with my 2019 brain, where you could, they're just going to be finding girls on their apps and not fighting over the one driving their company car.
If applicable, every week we like to give the Marvin Award for Best New Character, named after Marvin, their financial advisor. And there's really only one new character that shows up in this episode that kind of sticks around, and that's the Harvey Weingarten character.
Nothing like a good shit. Hey, give me one of those towels. You could get trashy.
Horrible, but also kind of great.
Yeah, I mean, they did from everything that I've heard about Harvey Weinstein, like that was a pretty perfect portrayal where like he just flies off the handle at the drop of a hat, and there's just like spittle flying everywhere when he's mad. I remember reading about some of Harvey Weinstein's outbursts, and like he yelled at someone like, "I'm the sheriff of this bullshit town." it was great because he's like almost negging himself. It's like, I'm the king of Horseshit Mountain.
The actor who played Harvey Weingarten was a Canadian guy named Maury Chayton. His career was made up of bit character parts, but he had a nice little run early on in his career. He was in War Games. He played a computer programmer. He was a prostitution witness in My Cousin Vinny. And then in 1990, he had a small but pivotal role in the film Dances with Wolves.
He's the guy in My Cousin Vinny who Joe Pesci's asking about the grits, right?
Do you remember what you had?
Eggs and grits.
Eggs and grits. I like grits, too. How do you cook your grits? You like them regular, creamy, or al dente?
Just regular, I guess.
Instant grits?
No self-respecting Southerner uses instant grits.
It's weird that the person who cast this episode so perfectly was also responsible for Kevin Connolly and Adrian Grenier.
Just another like completely unwarranted shot at the two. Great, hey, no, you're entitled to your opinion, man.
No, but honestly, like, what is Vinny Chase's like? What is his appeal? Like, he's like this guy who's kind of a dick, and he's super into himself. And I get that that's partly his character, but I feel like the whole thing, if this show was to work, you would expect him to be like this super charismatic guy who has like star energy, who kind of makes everybody feel a little bit cooler to be around him. And I've been around like actors who are like that, and seeing Adrian Grenier try to be that, it's just like, no, this is not the right guy. I don't know. It's I can't get over that hurdle. I think that's why the show is like a disconnect for me.
Fair enough. And it's a common complaint. I talked about this a little bit with Jeff Eisenband last week, where the show's called Entourage. It's about the people that surround this person. And that person, for plot purposes, should be a little vain, a little flaky, and a little dumb. Not dumb in terms of like more, just like not really connected to the world. And for all intents and purposes, I think Adrian Grenier accomplishes that. Now, is he the best actor on the show? I don't know. I'd say that award probably goes to Jeremy Piven, and it shows because he won 3 fucking Emmys for it.
Right,
so,
him and Lloyd.
Yep. We haven't talked a lot about Lloyd on this podcast. I'm looking forward to doing that as his character gets bigger and better.
I mean, like an example of seems like what they're trying to do with this is like Veep. Veep is kind of about an entourage of people. They're all like in this one person's orbit. And like she's very vain and shitty and amoral, but like she has like she's fun to watch be that, like she's magnetic as that kind of character, and I just don't get that with Vinny Chase.
Totally, and who knows? Maybe it was a matter of him getting miscast early on, and then it was a successful show, so they just had to run with him. I mean, you see that sometimes, and looked at AJ Soprano.
Right.
Later on in like seasons 6, 7, and 8 of Sopranos, they're trying to just give AJ anything to do because he just sat there on the ground playing Nintendo 64 for like 4 full seasons.
Oh, but he's like a perfect scumbag, and I think him and Turtle are like alternate universe versions of each other in some way.
Every week I like to award someone with the Faces in the Crowd award. This is like a bit player who you kind of recognize. Do I know? Is that person from that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who I'm going to say for this week? Did anyone jump out at you?
I mean, other than the ones that we've already mentioned, no, I don't think so.
So the girl who's the concession stand worker who is asking Cameron about Titanic, she's an actress named Chrissy Metz. She's best known for playing Kate Pearson in the NBC drama This Is Us. She's been nominated for Best Supporting Actors awards, Emmys, Golden Globes. She's like a big-time star on the most critically acclaimed popular broadcast drama right now, and she has 2 lines in this episode.
Yeah, I do remember that now that you mention her. She's also in a movie called Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot that is, it stars Joaquin Phoenix as like a disabled cartoonist, and she's like one of the friends he meets in recovery, and she's super good in that. So I do remember seeing her now that you mention it.
So we just talked about a great actress in Chrissy Metz. Let's talk about a great actor in Johnny Drama. What moment from this episode of Dramas was your favorite?
Oh, I mean, I've mentioned it like 2 or 3 times already. It's just him being like the douchey guy in the post-film Q&A. Yeah, he's always got that look on his face that he makes in Platoon, where he's like, "Oh man, you ever seen brains like that?"
Great callback to his other huge role as Bunny in the movie Platoon.
Do you think that's how he is in real life? Like, I don't know if I've ever seen him play like a non Kevin Dillon-esque character.
I think he is. I think he's a much more toned down version of it. I think he's a pretty serious, quiet guy. He keeps to himself from everything that I've read and seen about him. But follows the podcast on Instagram and likes stuff every once in a while. So, Kevin, if you're listening, please come on the podcast.
That's a feather in your cap right there.
Absolutely. I like the drama moment when him and Alejandro are leaving Queens Boulevard, leaving the screening for Queens Boulevard.
4 hours long, they cut me on the whole fucking movie.
But the line you spoke was delivered with such angst, Johnny.
Thank you, Alejandro. I do have an abundance of that.
Which is a very deadpan, like, well-written joke, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's a lot of well-written jokes in this episode.
If Vince is the winner every week, Vince, who would you say besides Vince won this episode?
Oh man, I mean, like in terms of like came out at the end of it smelling like a rose. I mean, I feel like they all came out smelling like a rose. I mean, that's kind of like
the lack of stakes.
That's kind of the whole thing. It was like the tension is like whether this 4-hour passion project is going to be any good. The movie plays and it's like smash cut to like, nope, everybody loved it, and Vinny Chase was so good in it. And you know what? He doesn't even have to choose between Harvey Weinstein and James Cameron. Boom, he just got that Entourage or that Aquaman role like right away.
So my answer is E.
Yeah.
E sets up the wine guard meeting. He ultimately gets Vince Aquaman. He's been pushing for 7 episodes. He found the script. Vince was out on Aquaman, and this is his moment of redemption where, Cameron sees the talent in Vince, offers him the role, and he also has sex with one of the PR girls, some of that Fallout pussy that Vince is always talking about. So he wins, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, like there's supposed to be sort of this conflict between doing the safe choice and doing the bold choice. And like, has anyone on Entourage ever done the safe thing? Like, they build it up like it's a conflict, but we know what they're going to do, and we know how it's going to play out. Like, they're going to take a big swing, and they're just going to hit another home run, and then there's going to be a pool party afterwards, and they're going to ride around in a convertible.
Oh, yeah. Vince goes, let's roll the dice. He probably says that 12 times this season. So every time they roll the dice, it comes up, comes up 7. So would you say this was an A-list episode, a B-list episode, or a D-list episode?
Oh, man, this is like an A-plus list episode. You got James Cameron, you got Peter Dinklage. Yeah.
Finally, something we agree on. There are no weak storylines. It's an iconic location. There's this hilarious drama turtle subplot, and Vince finally lands Aquaman, which is literally all they've been talking about for 6 to 7 episodes. But ultimately, when you talked about Entourage episodes and you say the Sundance one, everyone knows what you're talking about. So that's what kind of makes it stand out for me. That's what gives it its like boost up to the A-list.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, my criticism is like there's so much clarity like at the fringes of the storyline, you know, like the outskirts of it are like so well written and the characters are so fleshed out, and then like the main guys are just two fucking vacuums.
So my last question to most of my guests so far this season has been, in your life's entourage. Now, I understand you said earlier that it's not like a real life entourage.
Sure.
If you had to, gun to your head, compare yourself to one person in this quintuplet of people, who would it be?
Oh man, that's rough. You know, like I definitely, I hate this about myself, but I guess I would be the E in this situation, because he's kind of like, he's the only one who's like a little bit misanthropic and can't necessarily enjoy the success, because he's like he's the one that cares more, and you know, I don't know, has this flawed idea that there's like more to this than them partying, and probably can't enjoy it for what it is. And I hate to say it, but yeah, that's probably is the most like me.
It's fine, and it's a difficult question for some people to answer. I've probably asked 5 or 6 people, and 95% of them have said E, and one person, White Sox Dave from Barstool Sports, said that he was Johnny Drama because he's the most quotable. So not a lot of people saying Vince. I just want someone to come on and be like, honestly, I'm Vince. Everyone follows me around. Everyone circles me. I just want someone to have that awareness, and hopefully they're coming. Hopefully they'll be at death sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I think my life would be a lot more impressive if I was the Vince character, if everything just worked out for me all the time.
Well, Vince, this was an impressive episode of Oh Yeah, Oh Yeah. Thank you for joining us. We hope to honestly want to have you back. I liked the disparity. I liked the kind of push and shove of me and you disagreeing on things. It wasn't super combative, but you know, everyone has their own opinion, and it's a free country. You can come on an Entourage podcast and you can shit on Entourage. It's fine.
I hope, yeah, I'm sure I made all the listeners hate me. So sorry about that, you guys. I probably don't hear all the things that you like. So, but I enjoyed it.
Where can the listeners find you and follow you to voice their displeasure?
Oh yeah, well, I'm on Twitter at Vince Mancini, and my podcast is called the FilmDrunk Frotcast, Frotcast. We named it after the sexual act of frotting, where men rub penises together, because we thought that was a good metaphor for the act of podcasting.
So turtle and drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I know. Once again, we got like synergy going on. And again, we have a very similar podcast about The Sopranos, and it's called Pod Yourself a Gun. And we're going to be having episode 8 come out. So, and those are on all your podcast apps and whatnot.
Well, thanks for joining. We'll have you back soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. We are airing one last time next Wednesday. Next week is Memorial Day weekend. I'm not going to put this out on Monday because no one's going to fucking listen on Monday. Go to a barbecue. So this will air next Wednesday. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.